this is as as normal as a candid conversation between a couple of friends. Shivani mentioned that she was living in Bombay and I was in Bangalore. Home for us is in Delhi. We've known each other since school. We went to Delhi's DPS Mathura Road together. And school and college were in Delhi for us, and we remained close friends during that time. And then post that, MBA took us to different cities, and work after that, I was with Titan and she was with Avendus, and that was Bangalore and Bombay for her. So we were just talking about this is in 2000. We're in 2011, 2012, and at that point of time, we were just talking about the state of fashion in the country, and we were 25-year-olds. We were both, living on our own means. Sure, we were with good organizations and earning reasonably well, but living on our own, paying our rents and different cities and different expenditures. And all of this time we were discussing that fashion for us, like what is really available in this country. Like we were seeing what's happening globally. We were seeing like the birth and beginnings of ASOS and Vankel back in the day, and all of these brands that were coming up online and even offline, like with Zara and Bershka and Mango and Stradivarius, so many H&M, of course. There were so many well-priced offerings that our global counterparts had access to, which we didn't. In India, we only had, say, a Zara, and then Zara's pricing, for example, is not the same. I mean, if you apply the PPP filter to it, the purchasing parity filter, it's not the same high street pricing that, like, say, a European or an American consumer would find that as compared to an Indian consumer, because, of course, our disposable incomes are lower. So we had only maybe a Zara and a Mango, and they were higher priced than, they were not the kinds that you would wear 4 days or 5 days a week. They would be the ones that you would, buy for a special occasion, and you'd end up wearing it once or twice or thrice a month at max. And then on the other side of it, there were a few Indian brands that had come up by that time, which were offline brands, but they were completely not referring to what global fashion that time was. So as consumers, we had a vacuum for trendy, affordable, trendy fashion, and then lumped with, over and above that, affordable fashion, and then there was access, right? So we kept thinking about this conundrum, and we came back with this thought that, why don't we start this ourselves? That's the beginning. That was the genesis. We thought we would be too arrogant if we would just apply two people's insight into starting an entire business out. So we started with a survey. We reached out to more women, more peers in our age group, and we saw that this was something that was felt across the board. Fashion was not democratic in this country. Fast fashion didn't exist. Affordable fashion that lets you express yourself, fashion that, you're seeing versions of the runway translate to your own wardrobe, that fashion didn't exist. And that was just the starting point for us. Shivani being Shivani, I started getting business plans after business plans in over weeks and weeks, and then we started, and then it started looking like a reality that we would do this. So we both put in our papers. There was a lot of resistance at our old organizations, and we were really young, and people, our bosses would, like, just from a concern point of view, would be like, are you sure you want to do this? Like, you have this in hand. But nothing would deter us. We were quite sure that this could be something that could blow big for us, and given our skill sets and how well we'd worked even back when we were studying for CAT together or smaller things, we figured we would be compatible business partners. So we packed up our bags and flew back to Delhi and started Fabali. That's how it started.
So basically, in the initial stages, when you kind of building the business out, when you young, you remain entrepreneurs, and you trying to build a tech first, online first retail business, and you don't come from a tech background. I think some of the things that we had. So I think so for women, there are aspects which are different. And I think starting with starting with employees, for example, when you're doing your first hires, when when you kind of getting people on board in the first year, maybe the second year, when your business not established, it's still kind of a startup. We did feel that there were while we were interviewing or while we were meeting people in our tech team, etc. There was some kind of resistance in terms of are they they're young girls, so as to say. So, is it going to be a large company? Am I, making the right steps? So there was some kind of, we felt while interviewing people, while kind of the initial team was coming together, there was a little bit of that feeling, in people. And I think that was the starting. And, we've met many investors along the way. And again, we've never kind of felt in the investor community any discrimination or any sense of, kind of investors saying that, oh, they're women, can they build a large business? But just the fact that there are very less women, women run startups at the time, and and then kind of companies, later. There is, I feel that there isn't enough women representation. So we would walk into boardrooms of funds, and there would be like 15 men in suits, and and they're sitting, and Tanvi and I like this is our product. Why is the product different? Because it fits differently. The cut is different, etc. They would not understand. And then they would go back and say, I'll ask my wife to try, I'll ask my girlfriend to try, or maybe the receptionist to try, and, we'll get back. So I think, more than so the journey is different, especially, given the product that we also kind of making is for women. So just having women across the board helps, right? Whether it is, as Tanvi was mentioning, whether it's talking to women journalists or whether it's having women investors, who understand, or even, or your top employees being women. I mean, because when you are a woman and you are catering to, a large audience, which are all going to be women, I think just that entire supply chain needs to have a lot more representation. And I think that's where the journey is different. And even on the personal front, I feel, women just do so much more. And whether it is, a bit of a cliche, whether it's managing your kids or managing your family or, managing your work, it's just a lot more. And I think, to me, that's actually an advantage, because I feel that, when you're so used to kind of being on the run 24/7 and kind of managing so much, it really helps in your business, because you can kind of, really, you're better with your employees, your empathy factor is much more, you can kind of see things in a more holistic way. So for me, I think that's a plus. But yeah, I do feel that being a woman entrepreneur, the journey is different. There are, every aspect is different. And, and I can say for both of us, I think we're very proud women entrepreneurs. I think we've learned so much along the way. But yeah, it's only worked in our favor.
I think the early years are the years that it is a lot more challenging. And I think that's the time that it takes maybe, I don't want to put an assumption here, but probably a woman entrepreneur needs to work harder than a similar, male entrepreneur in a sense, because you want your business to be considered legitimate. There are instances from our first couple of years where, I mean, we've kind of forgotten them, right? Because it's been so many years and so many growth, so much growth after that. But there have been instances where you've had people that have thought that this was a boutique business, that this would be something that we would do, that we would run like it was a hobby, that we were embarking on. And with investors also, they're not the investors that of course we have on board, but with the investor community, sometimes the questions would be of a nature that would imply that there is a lack of permanence in what we are doing. And I think that the first couple of years, probably you just need to prove yourself harder. It needs to be more, you need to work harder, you need to show the best results. And then after that, then the playing field levels out in a sense. And then after that, once, then it doesn't matter whether, well, it does matter, but then your numbers and your, companies condition sort of speaks for itself after a point. Basically, as women are raised to be more empathetic in a sense, right? So I think with our employees and with our larger ecosystem, there is a lot of understanding in a sense of, why do you need to do what you're doing, and then therefore building out a system where people are more satisfied, and this actually shows in our job attrition. I mean, we've actually at our headquarters have a less than 8% attrition. So we've built out a company where people feel happy and they grow. And I think that a lot of that is because of like the general empathy that women leaders and women entrepreneurs tend to have. The second thing is multitasking. Definitely something that again is hard-coded, hardwired into our DNA. We've all there was this quote that I read many years ago, which sort of stayed with me, that we're the daughters of feminists that said you can have it all, and we paraphrased it to say that we must have it all. So, both of us have actually been raised by a very strong working mothers. Mine is a doctor and Shivani's mom is an entrepreneur herself. So I think that from a very early age, we've kind of understood that as women, we must play a balancing act, that we will not give up on one degree also of our career, but manage to build support systems, manage to, build our lives in a way that our personal lives also don't suffer. That we are able to juggle 4 or 5 things at the same time. And I think that's a leg up that women entrepreneurs have, because that's something that they've done all their lives. So when you extrapolate that to work, it's just a lot of pies that you could have your hand in without messing up any of those. I mean, so I think, those 2 things I would think would be crucial, would be, I think, the advantage that women entrepreneurs have.
I think being holistic and drawing a fine line between being aggressive and assertive in a way that, as we kind of, built the company, and, there is a lot of aggression, in the way we kind of built it in the last few years. But I think just, building it with people as opposed to just building it by the 2 of us. I think that's a big difference. So we don't, today, there are people who've been with us for 7-8 years. There are people who joined us in 2012 and, they're still working with us. And so, every year as we have an annual conference, and every year when Tanvi and I are standing there and it becomes bigger, and every year you need a new hall, and, and you're like, what do we do? I think it's just that you still spot those people who built it with us. So I think just that thought of building a holistic company together with people, is what we've seen in a lot of women entrepreneurs. I think, people we interact with, other women, I think that feeling is very, it's a lot in them. And I think that gives it a pretty big advantage, a pretty big edge. So yeah. So for us, we've had many people who inspired us, and we've had many people who really worked with us to build the company. So starting with early investors who backed us in 2013, to where we're at today. So I think we've had so it's I feel that as you kind of build a company, and if you have like a great mentor, maybe 2 or 3 people who've kind of really worked with you, helped you, motivated you in many ways, personal and professional, it's a big edge, and it really kind of holds things together. Because there will be times when things won't work, and there'll be many such times where you will be kind of down and low, and you're like, can I ever get back? Can my company ever get back? Can I, should I quit and go back to my job? And I think every entrepreneur will face this, irrespective of whether you're in your first year or 8th year or 20th year, because those times will come. And if you have like a strong foundation, and you have like people around you who've done it, people around you who can be there and tell you that it's going to work out, why don't you look at it differently? Why don't you think of multiple ways? It's always a great thing. And I think for us, we've been lucky to have that kind of a board over time to really mentor us, help us, along the way to really build the business. So I think it's very important, and I think every entrepreneur needs it. And those who don't should definitely run for it and get it. And besides that, I think we've also had, people who not directly invested, but who've been working with us in different capacities and who've just always really helped us. So just having a great support system and that foundation of strong people who you look up to, who can inspire you, really, really changes things.
Entrepreneurs tend to, when things get hard, tend to isolate themselves and, tend to take on a lot of, like we've always taken all the ownership and all the accountability, right? So for the good and the bad. So I think at that point of time, you need people to put things into perspective for you. And if there is, and if you have mentors and coaches and, industry experts that have guided you in the last, across your journey, then that always helps because they are the ones that are going to be able to give you that sense of perspective. What can be done? I think it starts as early as your upbringing, and thankfully, I see that changing already. Like we've been around for the last 8 years, and 8 years ago, when we used to sit for panels and when we used to be in discussions, we would be the only women. Now in a group of 5. Now there are 2 women in a group of 5. So my point is that representation, it's still low, but it is increasing, and there is a new generation of women entrepreneurs that is coming up. Having said that, it's not enough and it's not fast. So it starts as early as your upbringing, and I think that parents and schools, that's where the onus on treating the girl child equal, and for schools to encourage more leadership in terms of debates and communities and all of these things. That's how it starts. Then after a point, I think encouraging education is crucial, right? So I think that like women need to basically till their 20s. Till the time that they're fully sorted, they need to study. They need to focus on achieving those milestones as well. Because a lot of times, what happens with women is that there is a will, but there is a certain block, a mental block with how will I do it? Am I qualified to do it? Because women tend to second guess themselves a lot. So I think that like chasing after education in the first 2 decades of your life is super important. And then thirdly, I think it is also to choose the right partners for your journey, in terms of a lot of women that we've known who were with us in B school or started their careers with us, but eventually ended up leaving their jobs at the time when they got married or when they had their first child. So I think that is also super important for women to choose the right families to marry into, to the right partners, basically, in a sense, who are going to be your equals and not look at you as like the caregiver and them as the breadwinners. So I think these are 3 soft things that I would say that basically upbringing, education, and companions, like basically your companions, all of that, your support system needs to be in favor of women, putting their best foot forward and taking on entrepreneurship.
I think what this country really needs is a women for women movement, and women entrepreneurs, women leaders, people in senior position in corporates who are women, they need to support women. And it's not just about women entrepreneurs, it's about women going up along the way, like everywhere. So whether you look at corporates today, how many women CEOs are there in the country? You look at corporate boards today, how many women represent there, how many sit there? I was given an example that we walk into so many, we meet so many funds, and typically out of 15 men, there may or may not be one woman on that, on that board. And that's what, so you need women representation everywhere. Definitely you need women entrepreneurs, and more. And I think if all of us and many of us as a community, we kind of push that, we support that, because women do look for like mentorship, they do kind of seek out help early. And if we can do that as a community, that's something that's going to really help. The other thing is on funding. A lot of women entrepreneurs do face this challenge when it comes to funding, that, okay, I started a business. How do I kind of reach out to funds? Are they going to kind of look at me seriously? And many funds don't at different points of time. So there are a few funds that have come up, which, who actually put in, seed capital in women-led businesses. Can we have more of those? And it's not to say that, put in money in any business, but, for businesses that have the potential, which are run by women, can we kind of look at those and put in more money there? So I think just building a community, a network, and we see that building. We see those, conversations happening. We see those funds coming in. We see women on many, like Tanvi was saying, many more and more women entrepreneurs today. So I think that's the requirement. And as we do that, this country, I mean, women are smart. Like, I mean, all board results, like, just look at the results, right? Like, who tops, who tops in school every single year. And that's the thing, that, where do those women go? And, even in these schools, like, so I went to FMS, and almost always 2 years senior, 2 years junior, my batch, senior batch, it would be a woman who would be topping that batch. Where are these women, right? Like, when you have equal representation there, where does it go? So I think for me, a lot of it is about saying that, let's kind of really build that community and push women to, take those steps. Someone pushed us, someone pushed Tanvi and me, whether it was our family, our mothers, who we kind of saw. So, can we as a community get together and do that for many more people?
So I think for that, one is to have a very strong, I'll start with the hardest point, very strong sexual harassment cell. Lots of companies in the light of the Me Too movement have woken up and realized the importance of something like that. So we have that, and I think that just ensuring that there is a redressal committee, that things are not going to be swept under if there is ever a concern, is very, very important, because in this country, women do tend to be vulnerable to such kind of harassment. And I think that apart from that, just ensuring the other part of it is on travel and things that ensuring that, like, if you can provide a cab service, you can provide some amount of flexi hours to your employees, especially for women who are coming from far-flung areas, so that and provide work from home, of course, so that people can be connected without having to take challenging routes and these kind of things. Apart from that, I think just ensuring that growth is growth, and performance is performance. It doesn't matter whether you're a male or female. Having very transparent appraisals and having women in leadership positions, which attract more women to join as well, that also really helps, because I think that the pay gap concern that persists across the world. I think that as women leaders, we have always addressed that, and we will need to address that, so that women feel that this is one organization, that your organization is the one that, that their merit will shine through, and the results, their jobs, their promotions will be commensurate to their performance. So that's really important.
So I think a lot of it comes back to the holistic approach that that we've been talking about, in terms like a holistic humanistic approach, whether it's in this crisis which the world is facing, and companies are facing, and hence when you have like a woman leader at the helm, just the fact that the way you think of your people, which is the single most important thing at this point for everybody, whether it's for countries or it's for companies. And the way you think about your people, the way you you handle that's one big aspect. And I think women do it in a much more empathetic, in a much more stronger way than men ever, than men would typically. So that's one. And second is also on a lot of positivity that, that you need to keep your people going at this point. Everybody's facing personal and professional challenges, but just the way you kind of navigate through it, just the way you keep your company together, your people together, and, the kind of positive spirit that you instill in the company, I think women do it much better. And, we've got a lot of women entrepreneurs, who friends we talk to, and just that spirit of kind of keep going. And and that resonates in the company, and the way you kind of get out of this. I mean, that is women. My sense is women do it much better.